All right, welcome back everyone. So I'm working on this Onyx and Moonstone comic. I've got like a panel done. And I've got the lettering ideas in there, at least for what I think I'm gonna use for the dialogue. You might think that there's a lot more planning, like you would have to have settled dialogue before you do a comic, but it isn't always the case. I think that's a good way to do things, especially if you're working with an outside writer, for them to have their part already done before you start. But if you are the writer, you can leave some room for improvisation. That is the way the moral method actually works, by the way. Improvisation is a big part of it. So what I'm doing right here is I'm just fixing up my panel borders. We're going to take a look at it without the pencil lines here in a second. I'm looking at this and I'm not happy with that. Well, it's probably fine. Okay, let's take the pencils back out for just a second and you can see where we are. This is what it would look like if we were completely clean, although I don't have my bubbles in, my speech bubbles. I just have the speech text in there. It's just how we do it on Procreate. I don't use an outside program to do it. And panel 1, panel 2 is going to be, this is with Moonstone holding up his detector. And he's got a glove on, so we don't have to draw fingernails or anything like that. It's kind of an egg-shaped or a rounded, excuse it. I don't like it when it goes all fuzzy like that. Let's try it again. Line ellipse. There we go. There we go. Okay. Let's switch back to Gasinski ink. And if you remember, he's got kind of flared gloves. We've established them over here. And then we could use the technical pen. We're working on the technical details of the handheld unit. There we go. Okay. It has to have some kind of indicator. And then we're just going to look for tangents. All right, drop the layer back out. And this is a pretty sparse panel. It's okay to have a sparse panel like this, by the way. I think we've gotten into this mindset with modern comics that everything has to be fully rendered and you have to show a figure on every page. And the figure has to be done immaculately. I'm looking at this. And the problem is, it's just not true. And in fact, that doesn't make for better comics. In fact, it doesn't really make good comics at all. vintage comics, they knew when to use shorthand, right? They knew when to just kind of go minimal. And the other issue that I kind of have, I was just looking at, it was a Gotcha Man comic that focused on the character of Jason, not the main lead character, but like the secondary character. And there's several beautifully rendered panels of, you know, the guy's posing in a, you know, a leaping pose and everything, and he's talking to some, like he's rescuing somebody and he's talking to them while he's rescuing them. And in all of these pictures, the mouth is completely closed, right? So if the mouth is closed and your character is talking, it doesn't make sense. And also, for what this panel was used for, it was kind of a I mean, the fact that there was a character being rescued and there was some talking going on, but they went for this big dramatic pose for what was essentially like a little moment. And it tells you a couple of things. First of all, it makes me immediately suspect that the panel is traced. That they found a really cool, you know, figure holding another figure jumping out of a window and thought, this is perfect, it's dramatic, it's dynamic, it has everything I want. I'll just trace it and I'll put it on here. But it didn't really fit the dialogue that was going on in the scene, you know, or expand the character that much at all. I think it's okay. Oops. I think it's okay to, I better be on the right layer. I'm not on the right layer! I hate when I do this. Okay, so let's fix that. Cut and paste. Okay, there we go. Now we've taken this, we're going to bring it up to the inking layer. Whoops, there it is. And then we're going to fold it right back into the inking layer. There we go. Now, there's not enough stuff going on in this panel. Also, I don't like my hatching here. But if you're kind of forced into this mindset where you've got to make everything fully rendered and everything has to look perfect, you miss out on what the real benefit of cartooning is, which is sort of communicating this exaggerated emotional state, you know? And it impacts things in a way that I don't appreciate. That's why I like vintage comics. I think by not having access to things like, you know, the 3D models that are built into Clip Studio Pro at this point, or these big photo packs that people make, you've actually done a huge disservice to comics. There we go. Let's do some buttons here. I'm thinking about the, what was his name? He's a guy at Marvel, one of the more modern Marvel guys. And you would think I don't like them, but I do. And he pointed out that the Talking Heads pages are not useful. I saw someone else describe it as the White Room type comic, where the action could be taking place in a white room. Actually, they were describing novels that had this, where the characters are just having conversations and there's not a lot of description of what's going on. Okay. And that's going to be about the right size. Okay, I know this is pretty ugly and shaky right here. I might have to get rid of these buttons. Yeah, I don't think the buttons look right. Okay, well, how do we make this look more interesting? Well, we could use some focus lines to focus in on it. That's one way to do it. We might do some more hatching right here. There we go. Let's do some focus lines. All right, focus lines. You could have drawing guide, edit the drawing guide, make it perspective, put the dot right in the center of whatever you want to focus on, choose done. And I'm gonna put it on a different layer. We're gonna choose drawing assist. And this works best with something with some swing in it, so I like Gasinski ink for this as well. And you want to get the taper, so you want to start from the thick part of the line. Kind of do a flicking motion. And don't worry too much about what's going to go on with there. The bubbles will be placed. We can do that next. Okay. And make sure the assist goes back off. Erase anything that fell outside of the panel. You might have to go and correct some things. For example, this one. And it draws focus to the item. In this case, what he's holding in his hand here. And it fills up the panel, makes it a little bit more interesting. Oops. Okay, now let's also do some speech bubbles. For this one, I'm going to use the technical pen again. Okay, here's a secret of speech bubbles, and I've mentioned this before. Mostly you want to mount them to the brackets, the sides of the panels. People will tell you all kinds of things like, oh, I just use Clip Studio Pro and I do an oval, but I do like a perfect oval like that. That's not how speech bubbles actually look. You follow the contour of the word. Maybe that's better right there. And I'm looking at this one, I'm like, I could follow this bracket on the right side. I just have to get to a little bit closer. Here we go. Something like that. Okay. Oops. Okay, now we're gonna to establish two different characters. We're gonna point the pointers off different directions. And then we're just gonna flood fill, and hopefully this doesn't break. It broke anyways. Okay, I can see where the problem is. Forgot to close up this. Okay, now let's try the flood fill. That's looking pretty good, but I got a hole up here that I gotta fix, so let's fix that. It's on this layer, and if we recall, it is Kosinski ink. And I didn't even use the drawing assist on this one, so there we go. Let's get back in the inking layer. I think there's probably some wrinkles. On the gloves. There we go. Turn off the, where is it? Drawing guide. And we've got a panel. So let's go on to the next one. And I will continue inking this, and by tomorrow, hopefully we've got a brand new page that we can start on. In this one, we're trying to show some visual irony. Onyx says it just spiked, and this guy says probably a malfunction. And then we see behind them, the reader knows that these two things are warping in. Now, I've also considered just erasing the figures and just making it like a flash of energy. Or maybe making when I do the figures inside of it, I just do them as like sort of the barest little black blotch, you know, just a hint of there's something coming in, warping in. Whoops, don't do that. But looks like we're off to a good start. And I think I will color this comic. I think that might be a good idea. All right. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and I will see you later.